Okay, we are live.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our zoning meeting tonight, June 4th, 2020. Before we start the meeting, I would like to we'll start the meeting by beginning with the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Michael Leonetti.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Alton?
Begin with the roll.
Commissioner Alton?
Present.
Commissioner Creighton?
Present.
Commissioner Acevedo?
Is Commissioner Acevedo present?
might be muted.
Hold on. Commissioner, I'm going to unmute you. Commissioner?
Acevedo?
Present. Did you hear me?
Commissioner Reckner? Present. Commissioner Brooks? Commissioner Brooks?
It appears she just dropped off.
She's on phone only.
Yeah.
I'll go back. Commissioner Leonetti?
Present.
Chairman Morelli?
Present.
Commissioner Brooks?
She dropped off the call.
Okay. Would we be able to get in touch with Commissioner Brooks first before we
Hold
proceed
on.
again?
I have a call-in user. Hold on one second.
Okay, thank you.
Call-in user, I just unmuted you.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner is present.
Case 173, Applicant Partners LLC of 165 West 73rd Street, New York, New York, and Hebrew Academy of Long Beach of 132 Spruce Street, Cedarhurst, New York, for a variance from the following sections of the zoning code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach, New York. 9-105.12B height, 9-105.12D building area, 9-105.12F side yards, 9-105.12I density, for a new multiple dwelling with enclosed parking and amenities at 530 West Broadway, Long Beach, New York, also known as Section 59, Block 29, lots 14 through 35, 37, and 113 on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map.
Okay. Just a few remarks. Also, if someone is having a problem with their microphone, can you please try to check your microphones, because there's some background noise that keeps coming forward. That sounds like maybe somebody's mic is too loud, or they're breathing too close to the microphone. Let's see if we can get rid of that sound problem. Okay, so this evening's presentation, just for the public to understand, is not a case that will be, excuse me one second, am I the only one that hears that noise, or is there a?
I hear it. We hear it.
Can everybody please check their apparatuses, please, to make sure that this is not something that's coming from anyone's microphone?
Rocco, can everyone mute themselves while they're not speaking? And then we won't, maybe
Yeah. That would be a big help. Good idea. Thank you. So what I was saying is this is for the benefit of everyone here and for the public's understanding. This is a case that is not something this evening that's being held on to be voted upon. The actual hearing of this case will take place at a later date. Because of the times that we're living in right now with COVID, meetings cannot be held as per the governor's orders. Honestly, we don't know when the governor will lift the ban on large-sized public meetings. It could be in a few months, we're not sure. This meeting basically comes on the heels of an environmental impact study that was required by the applicants on the property at 530 West Broadway, which was previously known as the HALB building. There were many things that had to be done in terms of the environmental impact, any kind of plans that were being made, any mitigating plans that were also being considered. And in this fashion, the city had an outside firm evaluating these plans and evaluating the environmental impact. The point of the meeting tonight is because the applicant is going to be presenting this environmental impact study publicly, we're going to be taking a look at it and hearing their presentation. The applicants have agreed to a 30-minute presentation. At this time, the presentation will basically cut to the heart of it. That's why it's going to be brief, not like typical meetings may run with the presentations. All of those and all of the associated questions will be held in a live public forum, we hope, in a few months once the governor's mandate about open meetings is lifted. So at this time, again, to allay concerns of any of the members of the public that have a fear that this is something that's going to be approved or not approved, there's nothing tonight that's going to be voted on for approval or not for approval. What we are doing tonight is we are examining the study that was done. The study is being made public. The zoning board is viewing this tonight as the public will be viewing this tonight. A mechanism will be made that the public will have ample time to examine this document and other documents associated with it well in advance of the final zoning meeting on the case. And it will not be until that case is heard in its thorough entirety that the case would be voted upon. At that time, the public will have ample opportunity to voice opinion. At that time, there will be ample questions from both sides. At that time, there will be full and total disclosure of the project that is at hand and asked to be voted on. So once again, to be clear, tonight is an explanation of the environmental impact study that was done and analyzed by our engineering consulting firm and nothing more. So if you feel that a lot of questions were not asked, these questions are not going to be asked at this meeting. At this time, I would like to introduce our Corporation Counsel, Ms. Simone Friedman, who's going to further speak on the scope of this meeting. Ms. Friedman, please, if you'd like to elaborate.
Thank you. Yes, tonight's public hearing is on the draft environmental impact statement, which has been prepared for this proposed development. No decisions will be made on the application tonight, and the zoning board must complete the environmental review process prior to issuing any decisions. In addition to that, additional hearings on the zoning portion of this application will also be held at a later date. In light of the, as the chairman referenced, in light of the ongoing public health crisis, we wanted to ensure that our residents have a full and fair opportunity to make meaningful comments, and that they are provided with the information necessary to access and review the draft environmental impact statement on our website. So the more specific, we could just go to slide 3, sorry. Okay. No, slide 3, not 4. We're one ahead.
Sorry.
It's okay.
This is slide 3.
So the meeting purpose tonight, so the purpose of this meeting, as has been explained, is for the purpose of providing information. So the draft environmental impact statement, if you are not aware, is currently available on the city's website for public review and comment at the website link that is provided on the screen right now. So the purpose of tonight's meeting will be to help the public understand how to access and review the draft environmental impact statement, how to submit comments on the draft environmental impact statement, and to review the comments made by others. There are currently comments that are available online that have been made by others, and you can see them. And the final aspect of this meeting is to get the latest information on this application and on the mitigated alternatives that have been proposed. At this point, I'll turn it over to Carrie.
Good evening. This is Carrie O'Farrell with Nelson Pope and Voorhees. I have been assisting the zoning board with the review of the application and the draft environmental impact statement. So I'm going to just do a really brief overview on what that means for the public, and then we're going to make sure that we're going to walk you through how you can, again, view that document and provide comments before we turn it over to the applicant. So the Zoning Board of Appeals is the lead agency that is responsible for the environmental review of this application under what's called the State Environmental Quality Review Act, which is a state law. The Zoning Board several years ago made a determination that the project could result in one or more significant adverse impacts, and therefore required the preparation of this environmental impact statement, which is now open for public review. As part of that process, a public scoping meeting was held and a scoping period was opened to get public input on the topics that would be included in the draft environmental impact statement. The applicant prepared a draft environmental impact statement that went under review for a number of months, and a final submission was made and accepted by the zoning board at the April 23rd, 2020 meeting. That opened officially the public comment period, which originally was set to close on July 3rd. Given the extension of the governor's executive order and in the interest of public health, as the chairman indicated at the beginning of the meeting, the board has decided they are going to extend that public comment period to make sure that there is ample opportunity for the public to review and comment on the document. So the comment period has been extended an additional 90 days to October 2nd of this year. We will, as possible, provide updates on the zoning board website so that in the future, if City Hall is able to be opened, we would allow for people to by appointment to come in and view the document in person. So we will provide updates on the website to make sure the public is aware when that opportunity is available. In the meantime, the zoning board is encouraging everyone to view the document online, which we'll go through in a minute, and submit your comments during this extended public comment period. So in terms of being able to access the document, I'm just going to run through a couple of screenshots of what the zoning board webpage looks like and how you get to the document. So this is, as we noted, the zoning board's website, which you would normally access to see the meeting agendas and general information on meeting dates. There is a link that has been set up, which is highlighted here at the bottom of the screen, that allows you to click onto a website or a page that has been set up specifically for this case. So this is what that web page looks like. It provides information specific to, again, this case, and the link to download the draft environmental impact statement is in bold and red right in the middle of the page. And in order to access the document, you click the link right here, which says viewing and download. And that will bring up a separate new page where all the documents are uploaded. And in order to download and view the documents, you simply click on the icon and it will open the various documents. This one that I'm showing right now is the main text of the draft EIS. And it also includes the table of contents, which is really helpful in understanding all the different components that are included in the EIS. So this main document is probably the most critical thing to open at the beginning of your review. This appendix is quite a few documents, so we created a folder right here that you can click into, and that contains site plans and renderings, supporting studies, all the visual impact information, and a lot of the details of the document. So when you click into that folder, it looks like this. It lists, again, all the different studies and plans that are available. Again, handy to have the table of contents nearby when you go through this so that you can easily get to the different appendices that you may be looking for. In order to submit comments on the document, you can do that in one of two ways. Up until October 2nd, as I just mentioned, it's been extended. The comments may be submitted via email to Robin Lynch, and this is, again, on the city's zoning board website, so you can If you don't want to write this down at this moment, you can go to the city's zoning website and view this email address, or you can submit comments in writing to the Zoning Board of Appeals. As was mentioned, because we aren't able to have a meeting in person tonight, we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to view the comments that others are making. So back on the city's zoning board website, specifically on the 530 West Broadway site, right under where you access the draft environmental impact statement, there's a second link that has the link to viewing comments that have been received by the board. So this will be updated regularly. And again, you're just going to click on the can be viewed here, and it will bring up a listing of all the comments that have been received at that time, and who the comment was made by and the date of the comment. So this will keep a running repository of comments as we go forward through the comment process. So the next steps, we are in the middle of an environmental review process right now, and there's a number of steps that take place as part of that environmental review. So right now we've got the draft environmental impact statement available for public input. And again, those comments will be, or the opportunity for public comment will continue until October 2nd of this year. Once all those comments are received, a response to all substantive comments will be issued in writing, and that is called the final environmental impact statement. Once that document is prepared and ready, that will be posted to the city's website, again, for public review. And again, hopefully at that time, we would be able to have people come in and view it in person. We'll see what happens. And then following the issuance of that final environmental impact statement, the board will issue what's called the finding statement. And that is the conclusion of the environmental review process. Again, as been mentioned, there's no decisions on this application until the environmental review process is complete. And there will be an opportunity for additional public hearings on the zoning application in the future. So this is not by any means the last opportunity for public review and comment. If you have any questions about being able to access the draft environmental impact statement, you can email Robin Lynch at the zoning office. This is her email address. Again, she's also the person receiving comments, and she's available if you're having issues with access. And now we're going to turn it over to the applicant to make their presentation.
Okay, Ms. O'Farrell, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm hoping that everyone, has understood what Ms. O'Farrell has stated. And I know that, as we said in October, we have plenty of time for people to avail themselves of the document. This isn't something that we're expecting everyone to run out and do tomorrow. We understand there are a lot of circumstances that are kind of preempting this. So I think that we're talking about a 4-month period where people are going to have an opportunity to, view it, give comments. If there are any questions and difficulties in viewing the document, we're going to make sure that we do everything we can to ensure that the public has correct and proper opportunities, that they will be heard, and that the applicants will be heard. In fairness to everyone, we understand that this is a project that many people may have opinions about, and as the zoning board, we have an obligation always, as always, to be fair, and we will certainly make sure that we are. Sir, the applicants, we can ready to start. If Mr. Whittick, I believe you're the first presenter, if you'd just like to give us your name and address for the record, please, and you can start the presentation. And again, we had agreed to a 30-minute presentation, so here we are, and please start whenever you're ready. Okay.
Rocco, I'm sorry, everybody. It's Robin. Did you want me to acknowledge the comments we received thus far before the applicant gives their presentation?
You know what? Yes. Why don't you do that? That's a good idea.
Sorry,
because
yes.
at least this way, if the applicants, as they're speaking during their allotted time period, want to address some of the comments or want to certainly mention them, they'll be given an opportunity now to at least know what people have been saying. Okay? Yes, please do that.
So we received an email from Charles Pecknick of Pecknick and Schaefer dated May 28th, 2020, with a response from Simone Freeman, Corporation Counsel and Counsel to the Long Beach Zoning Board of Appeals. We also received a letter from the Long Beach Public School District signed by Dr. Jennifer Gallagher dated May 29th, 2020. We received another email from Charles Pecknick of Pecknick and Schaefer, June 2nd, 2020. An email from Christina Werner dated June 2nd, 2020, and an email from Kathleen McGann dated June 3rd, 2020. And all of these correspondences have been uploaded to the website that was presented earlier.
Okay, Ms. Lynch, would you care to make any kind of comment or generalizations or any kind of comments that had a recurring theme, so that this way maybe the applicants can at the very least be afforded an opportunity as they're running through their presentation to be able to cover some of those or perhaps address them, and it will at least give a running start to people that have had, you know, some cares, concerns, et cetera, to be able to at least kind of know how they are being addressed, because I would anticipate that some of them will have to do with the environmental impact, and since tonight's hearing is on the environmental impact of the project, perhaps they can touch on some things that maybe they hadn't planned on mentioning. It might be for the public's best interest if we can.
Robin, if you'd like me to just quickly.
The applicants
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
provided with a copy of the link, so they were able to view all of the correspondence that we received.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fine. Okay. All right. So then, is it Mr. Curtin or Mr. Whittick that's going to be up first to speak?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Actually, this is Daniel Baker. I'm the attorney for the applicant.
Okay. I'm sorry. Mr. Baker, please just give us your address for the record, okay?
I will. It's Daniel Baker of the law firm Sir Tillman, Ballin, Adler, and Hyman. We're at 90 Merrick Avenue, 9th floor, East Meadow, New York, 11554. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Before I get into our planned presentation, I'd like to just make a couple of points and clarify them. The first one being, it's certainly our understanding that this is a public hearing and that the governor's orders allow for public hearings in this capacity, meaning that they can be virtual and they can be done like this, so long as there is a court reporter taking down what's happening. So this is, in fact, it has been noticed as a public hearing by the city, and it is a public hearing, and you can conduct public hearings at any time from now until the governor's orders say you can't do that. That being said, we do understand the discussion that was had today about extending the time period for comments to go in to allow people to have better access and so forth. So we get all that, but I do just want to make it clear that this is a public hearing and the city can conduct public hearings just like any other municipality in the state right now. The second point that we would like to clarify is really what just came up now in your introductory comments. And that has to do with what the real point of tonight is and what is going forward in terms of more hearings and other hearings. It would seem that the idea is to keep this as the continued SECRA portion of the process and then have further hearings on the zoning questions later on. We're not really sure.
I'm just going to stop you for a quick second, just because, again, the lay public is listening. Just explain to them quickly so they understand what SECRA is. I don't know if everybody would know that, if you could just mention to the public quickly.
Okay, so quickly, that's the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and what has been the basis for the DEIS, that is really the subject, the initial subject of this meeting and hearing tonight, and what has been going on for the past 3 or so years. The state requires that there be an environmental review of some capacity. The city has determined that this was the path that the applicant would go down, which is to spend considerable effort in addressing comments, which again, we believe we have done with the DEIS, as we will get into later on in this discussion, a mitigated alternative to the proposed plan, which reduces a lot of the elements of the project. And the idea here is that we've done that, we've addressed things and can move forward with a project that we believe is a good one for all sides. So I think that's as far as I'd like to go with the sequence process.
Okay, that's fine, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, so, again, I think just to end, my point is maybe more of a question. What really is the intent or the point of tonight's hearing from our perspective, meaning the applicant, and what do we envision going forward with further hearings? It certainly sounds like there will be more from what we've already heard.
All right. So that you have a prepared agenda in terms of the draft of the environmental impact statement, and as the slide clearly shows, there are issues that come into play into any environmental impact study. So at this point, do you plan on touching on the individual aspects, or are you just going to summarize it? Go ahead in any manner that you see fit.
Okay, so we'll move on with the presentation. I don't know that anybody else wants to jump in, whether it's city attorney or consultant, but to answer the questions I just posed. But if not, then we'll proceed.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but what kind of questions? I mean, I think you're just acknowledging that we're having a public hearing, which we are. The governor's order does allow us to not have public hearings if we choose. This hearing was scheduled before the most recent order was extended to June 27th. So we did decide to go ahead and have this hearing. And yes, it is a public hearing. But as you noted, that doesn't mean that the public, this may be the best format for a hearing. And we have received comments and concern that the public wants to make sure that we have a full opportunity to have a comment period that works for them and to understand the document and the mitigated alternatives. So that's why we're doing this as a presentation kind of information session.
Yeah, and I'd like to just jump in for a second. And also with, a project that has any sort of significant impact and significant magnitude, I think that even though, fortunately for technology today, we can have meetings like this and they are valid public hearings. However, having been zoning board chairman for a number of years, I feel, and I think that most of us will agree, that in a meeting of this scope or a project of this scope, the old-fashioned, old-school face-to-face is very important in viewing the people that are speaking. Sometimes it's kind of hard to gauge what's going on over an audiovisual modality. And I personally would feel much more comfortable, as I'm sure everybody else would, if a meeting like this, even though we can by law call this a public hearing, because it is, I think most of us would feel more comfortable if this was held live with an audience as soon as we can safely do that. So that being said, let's proceed.
But when do we expect that to happen? Is that going to happen?
Dan, I don't know that we're necessarily saying either way. I know right now we're saying we're extending the comment period. We're going to take it as it comes with COVID because we're all experiencing the same uncertainty together, and we'll move forward. Again, I think that the chairman is saying that we'd all prefer to do this. Obviously, if things continue, we may not be able to, but for now, we're going to move forward because it's in everyone's best interests, and we'll take it as it comes as the comment period is open.
Listen, I'm just going to say one thing. As a healthcare practitioner, and the uncertainty of this virus and the uncertainty of the spread of this virus, I think we will all agree that, as Governor Cuomo has said many times, I think that people's lives and safety and well-being will take precedence over any kind of project or any kind of meeting that we're having, because if there are recurrences of the COVID virus, we really can't make a specific date, because in the interest of the public safety, that has to come first. Okay, so let's go on, please.
Okay, listen, we certainly understand that, and we're mindful of everything that is, making things difficult, not only for this hearing, but for every other one and every other place. We understand. I think we were just looking for a little clarity because the intro to this is a little different than the discussion we had leading up to this. And we've got, people here to present what we thought was going to be a zoning hearing in addition to the DEIS portion of this, meaning deal with some of the aspects of the DEIS, and most particularly the mitigated alternative that we can and will talk about. So with all of that being said, it seems to me that we don't know when, where, and how things will really proceed from here. And that's understandable to some extent. It's just making it a little difficult for us to, formulate our presentation and move with it. So I think with that,
I understand, Mr. Whittick, but we'll certainly give you every latitude. We'll extend every latitude that we can. In the fairness of all that your, applicant and yourselves have gone through, and I understand it's been considerable time spent on this. There's been considerable expense spent on this. We're certainly cognizant of that fact. We're respectful of the fact that you folks have put a lot of time and effort into this. And we will, afford you every latitude that we can based on all these circumstances that are going on. But again, in fairness to both sides, the applicants and the residents, we want to make sure that this is done in the fairest way possible for all. Okay? So let's proceed, please.
Okay, so thanks. And again, good evening to all. Now I'll proceed with our presentation. Again, my name is Daniel Baker. I'm joined tonight by my partner at the law firm, Michael Zabson. In addition, we have members of our project team, including the applicants, environmental consultants, economic consultants, and real estate expert. Two of these people will be speaking after me. That will be Kurt Whittick, who is one of the principals of the applicant. In addition, he will be followed up by our real estate expert, Barry Nelson. The purpose of tonight's hearing, we've already discussed, is twofold. One is to provide information as to the DEIS, which was explained, can be found on the city's website. The second aspect of tonight is to provide an overview, a description of the mitigated alternative development plan, which is detailed more fully in the DEIS. After the previous hearing before this board held on March 30th, 2017, and the subsequent positive declaration issued by this board on June 22nd, 2017, a public scoping period ensued until a final scope was issued on September 28th of 2017. The DEIS was prepared in accordance with the final scope promulgated by the board, which evaluated a then proposed action consisting of 126 units and 2 9-story buildings and a third 6-story building over 2 levels of parking. The DEIS is a comprehensive and voluminous document that analyzed impacts to myriad issues, including soils and topography, water resources, ecology, zoning, land use, and community character, transportation and parking, noise and vibration, air quality, community facilities, socioeconomics, visual and cultural resources, energy, growth inducement, and cumulative impacts, all of which can be found in the DEIS. In addition, it also evaluated various alternatives as prescribed by the final scope. As part of the preparation of the DEIS, an alternative emerged that reduced the scale of the project and the scope of the requested variances while facilitating a viable and quality redevelopment and revitalization of the property with a use that is permitted under the prevailing Residence K zoning district. This alternative resulted in an over 11% reduction in the number of residential units, a 17% decrease in height, an over 22% decrease in the number of stories, doubling of the area of unobstructed open yards, and an almost 13% increase in lot area per unit. This is now the applicant's preferred alternative for which variance approval is being sought from the board. A full description and analysis of this alternative can be found in section 6.4 of the DEIS, which starts at page 283, and plans are included in Appendix T of the DEIS. Also note that while the DES hang on. Sorry about that. Also note that while the DES is voluminous and a comprehensive document with many exhibits and reports next to it, there is an executive summary at the beginning, which does a very good job of explaining the full contents of the DEIS in a much more abbreviated fashion. So that's maybe 40 or so pages, and it really gets to most of the meat within the larger document and attachments. It's the applicant's belief that the alternative mitigated action would repurpose a currently vacant site which operated for decades as a tax-exempt private educational institution and replace it with what the applicant believes to be an attractive, modern, state-of-the-art, multifamily residential development that would generate significant property tax revenue for the city and be a catalyst for future redevelopment and revitalization. The proposed action would also enhance adjacent property values and attract residents and businesses to the city, enhancing economic vitality and the quality of life for all residents, including the creation of many jobs, both at the site and off. The alternative mitigated action would cater to the demand for upscale market rate residences, consistent with the subject's property's prominent and desirable location on the boardwalk and the ocean front, and help the city advance its goals for revitalization. It is also important to note that the mitigated alternative action would provide sufficient on-site parking exceeding the requirements of the zoning code. This development is of a magnitude sufficient to support the inclusion of substantial on-site amenities, thereby enhancing the overall quality of the use and also reducing the potential for the proposed action to place significant new demands on public amenities and causing associated impacts to community character. The applicant has listened and responded to the community comments from the 2017 hearing and the scoping period and believes it has fairly addressed the concerns by developing the mitigated alternative. At this point, I would like to introduce Kurt Wittick, who is one of the applicants, to further detail the mitigated alternative. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Wittick. Just please give us your name and address for the record, and we'll have you speaking.
Kurt Wittick, appearing on behalf of 73rd Meridian Partners, 165 West 73rd Street, New York, New York, 10023.
Go ahead, Mr. Wittick.
Okay, so as Dan said, we have a mitigated plan that we believe is extremely responsive to the comments we got at the hearing in March of 2017. The image you see on your screen is our current mitigated plan, which contains 2 residential buildings on the east and western ends of the site. The site is 500 feet along the boardwalk. It's 150 feet deep. Each of these buildings contains 56 units, total of 112 units on site. There are 2 levels of structured parking that come up from grade that contain a total of 223 parking spaces. The second level of parking also contains residential units. I will walk through that in a little more detail shortly. There are 56 1- and 2-bedroom units interspersed throughout these buildings, and 56 3- and 4-bedroom units. There are 7 residential stories above the 2-story parking podium. The top floor, which we will call the penthouse, is set back slightly and contains roughly 20% less square footage than the floors below it. The podium level contains a swimming pool that sits above the boardwalk. Behind the pool in this image is a clubhouse building, which contains a club room, a fitness center, currently conceived as another room conceived as a theater. Post-COVID, obviously, we don't know quite what these things will look like, but there are significant on-site amenities. I'll walk through some of the logistics of the site so that you can better understand the way this lays out. That's This level is the first level of parking, exclusively parking, some small lobbies so that folks that park their car can get directly up to their units on either side or up to the center amenity building, center lobby. The second level contains, as I said, not only parking, but on the eastern and western edges and on the south side fronting the boardwalk, there are 4 residential units on each end of the second layer of parking. You go up to the next level, that is, let's say, a typical level. It contains the club level, the pool, and the podium. That podium is roughly 12,000 square feet of recreational area for the residents. To further explain, we'll look at a section cut through the building. This is looking from the boardwalk back to West Broadway. You can see that the first level is all parking. Second level has parking and residential units. So to be clear and to avoid any confusion, there are 2 levels of parking and then 7 stories of residential above that. So it's 7 stories above the 2-story podium. There are residential units on 8 levels because there are residential units along with parking on the second parking level. The height of the building is 105 feet above grade. It is 99 feet above the FEMA elevation line. It's clear to us that any new construction that would take place on the ocean front or anywhere else would have to take into account FEMA. So everybody going forward will be building above FEMA. So 1 level above, in order to get parking under any structure, it would be 1 level above grade, which would start it. So there are various heights between our different elevations, our different floors for different reasons to accommodate parking, swimming pools, et cetera. The array of amenities on the property is, I think, important to our target market. We are targeting baby boomers who are essentially empty nesters, and we are targeting Gen X individuals that likely would have no children and be living here probably without children, right? So this is the view from West Broadway, which shows the point of entry. There's a ramp that ascends to the second level of parking where there's a drop-off. Guests and visitors could come in through there. They would go up 1 level to the club level, and then there are corridors that go east and west to the 2 towers. The front side of that level is the club room that fronts the pool deck, and the level above it is the theater room and the gym. So on the boardwalk side, our property made some effort to interface with the boardwalk, which perhaps some other of the developments over time haven't done. We have included a public amenity, a seating area on our property along the frontage underneath the pool that you see there circled by yellow. There are 2 layers of seating. The length of that is approximately 130 feet. It's a significant public amenity, we feel. There are 2 stairways on either end of that where our residents can come and go from the project onto the boardwalk. The amenity building in the background. If you look at this image and you see on the left-hand side and on the right, the level with some greenery, that is the terrace level that is on the second level of parking, which is 1 story below the level where you see the swimming pool. So part of our effort in changing this plan from what it was has also softened the edges and created a, let's say, friendlier interface with the boardwalk and with all the surrounding properties. Significantly, the project will generate total income of 2.8 million plus, $1.1 million to the city, $1.4 million and change to the Long Beach school system, and roughly $250,000 to Nassau County. During the course of construction, it will generate 735 construction-related jobs and $237 million in economic benefits and activity. Post-construction, on an annual basis, it will generate $8 million in annual local economic impact and 56 permanent local jobs. It's important to note, we believe, that the project will attract a certain level of buyer that would likely spend significant dollars in the local marketplace, patronizing local restaurants, shops, etc. Obviously, in the COVID area, we all are somewhat wondering what the next step is, what the markets will do, etc. It seems fairly logical to us that a project of this nature will remain in high demand. We think that we offer an amenity package, an architecture, a setting, obviously an oceanfront setting. Our units are designed in such a way to maximize ocean views, to give every unit a balcony that has somewhat direct view to the ocean. The buildings are slightly wider in the back than at the front. So each and every balcony has an effectively direct view of the ocean. And the units, as you can see, the buildings are designed as significantly glass. So we are marketing floor to ceiling glass with some glass balconies to maximize the ocean exposure. And I'd like to take you through the changes that we made to arrive at this plan and the difference in the previously proposed alternative. So here's a view from the west of the previously proposed plan. You see the 2 layers of parking, 9 layers of 9 stories of residential on each of the towers, and 1 6-story building built in the middle, 4 stories above our amenity building. If you look at the mitigated alternative, and Steve, if you could move back and forth between them once or twice, you can see the significant change where we have reduced the height of the buildings and we have brought the buildings closer to the center of the site, creating a greater distance separation between us and 560 to our west and between us and Washington Boulevard to our east. And we have softened, I believe, the edges by eliminating that second level of parking around the perimeter. You can see that the building sets back. We push the building 15 feet in either case further towards the center of the site, and it creates a significantly reduced visual impact from any angle viewed. There's a boardwalk shot, I believe, that can indicate that in some greater detail. So I would just like to stress the effort that we made to listen to the comments we received, to be responsive to those comments, and to make some significant physical changes to the plan that were quite responsive to the comments. So we went from 126 units to 112. We went from 9 stories to above the podium to 7 stories above the podium. We significantly reduced the area and the open yards available for light and air. And I think in today's world, this project architecturally offers a fresh look, if you will, a style that's clearly somewhat different than the styles that we see that have been built along the boardwalk over time. This is a state-of-the-art architecture, let's say, responsive to what the market is. And we think it will draw the highest level of buyer that will obviously enable the fiscal impacts that we are predicting to occur. The array of amenities is important in that stack of attributes for us. The architecture is important, the floor-to-ceiling glass, the floor-to-floor heights. We're looking to have 10-foot floor-to-ceiling heights in these units. And we clearly have heard the voices. We believe this is a win-win situation for us and the city. We have a beautiful project to attract a high level of buyer with a great array of amenities and a nice oceanfront lifestyle. And the city gets a significant economic benefits on an annual basis, both in the form of direct tax revenue and in the increased business that will be done in the city of Long Beach. So our real estate expert will now walk through some of the particulars of the community character and how we enhance it. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson, good evening.
Good
When
evening,
you
Chairman.
come up to the, to the podium, you're no stranger to the board. So just please, for the record, give us your name and address.
Thank you. It's Barry Nelson, 220 Pettit Avenue, Belmore, New York, 11710. If the board would like, I am a licensed real estate appraiser, general. I am a New York State licensed real estate broker as well.
And for the record, we've had Mr. Barry Nelson CV on file numerous times, so we won't have to question his credentials. He's been before this board a number of times, and we've had ample opportunity to validate his credentials as such. Go ahead, Mr. Nelson.
You've heard substantially about the proposed application. I'm here tonight to review the character of the neighborhood, the subject property, and the corridor along Broadway and the oceanfront, as well as some immediate blocks to the subject property. We can begin with the subject property itself. In front of you, you have the zoning. I'll get into that in a second. The subject property is currently improved with was formerly a religious educational school. At times, it probably had 800, 700 students. It didn't provide any on-site parking. It's non-conforming. It provides, or it has a lot coverage in excess of 40% and limited, and it is an old building, one of the dilapidated today buildings in the immediate vicinity and all along the oceanfront. What you have is zoning, and generally the zoning in the city of Long Beach starts with Park Avenue, the C zone, the A zone, and we come to the blocks going south towards the ocean, which would typically be the 1 and 2 family zone district. A and B, you have the D zone. Generally, right up to Broadway, the northerly side along Broadway, and that would probably be for the entire Long Beach corridor of Broadway from New York Avenue on the west right up to Maple Boulevard on the east, the J zone on the northerly side. The southerly side generally is the K zone and the L zone. In fact, the majority of the zoning would be the K zone and, I'm sorry, the L zone, and the K zone would be approximately 4 blocks, 5 blocks, 3 on the west side, 2 on the easterly side. In the middle, you have the RBA district where the super block is, and a block or 2 just to the west, closer to the subject property, where it provides for a mixed use and a greater density and height. The subject property is the K zone. The block to the, or the 2 blocks to the west would be the K zone. And as we travel east of the subject property and the subject block, you have the L zone. Up until approximately National Boulevard, where you have the RBA zone for the first block, and then you have the first 2 blocks, and then you have the super block. And this would be the same pattern all the way to the easterly end of the city of Long Beach. Within the subject block itself, subject parcel is a unique parcel in that it has approximately 500-foot frontage, 150 feet depth, 75,000 square feet in gross land area. Immediately to the west is 560 the Seaview Terrace, and that's improved with a apartment co-ops. It's approximately 70+ feet in height. It has it has 84 units, and it's on 30,000 square feet. 200-foot frontage, 150 feet deep. The relationship to that parcel as it's improved compared to the subject property has 75,000 square feet. 560 is 30,000 square feet, 84 units. The applicant is proposing 112 units. The density, 1 unit for every 670 square foot for the subject property. 560 has 1 unit for every 357 square feet. As you see the exhibit before you, the heights, the substantial difference in real estate taxes, where 560 generates approximately $345,000 in total taxes, and the proposed real estate taxes, and that would include the city, the county, and the school, which you heard earlier how it broke down, of almost $3 million. The subject property is fully compliant with the requirement of the code for on-site parking, and will be fully compliant to FEMA's requirements. The interesting aspect of this proposal is that the part of the subject property to the west, where it's adjacent to 560, is approximately a 30-foot easement area that will be maintained for parking for the benefit of 560. The setback from building to building, that would be from 560 to the proposed nearest point near on the subject property, would be 45 feet between the two buildings. That's almost approximately a roadway width, and now you can look at Washington Boulevard as well as the Lindell to the west. If we continue with the general character of the immediate vicinity of the subject property, and we can go to the west, you'll see 615 to 627. It's developed with townhouses. Those townhouses built in 1985. Is approximately 3 to 4 stories in height, and they run from east and west, providing for minimum side yard setbacks on the ends and no interior open yards. The next building to the west, and that would be within 1 block to the west of the subject property, would be 640 Broadway. It's a nursing home. It's a nursing home that is approximately 3 and 4 stories in height. It provides very minimum side yards, open view corridors. That nursing home has approximately, or I keep saying approximately, it has 182 units. 182 units on, which breaks down to approximately 1 unit for every 247 square feet, where the applicant is providing for 1 for every 670 square feet of area. The next developments to the west of that, which would be basically non-conforming attached dwellings between 658 through 670 up to Grand Boulevard. Dwellings, some of them are 2, 3, and 4 family dwellings, Cape Cod in design, attached and semi-attached, providing for no view corridors, no open yards from Broadway to the ocean. Continuing west between Grand Boulevard and New York Avenue, 730 to 750 in the K zone, the Sand Castles, and that's approximately 5 stories in height, built 1985, 1987. The Ocean Walk, which would be the next development to the west, 780 West Broadway, that's approximately 43 feet in height. The northerly side, as we continue around, you'll see just catch up to that one. The Grandel, that's a give me a second. That's a development on the northerly side, just to the one block to the northwest of the subject property, 645 West Broadway. And the parcels in the north side, as I mentioned earlier, are all within the J zone. The J zone allows for a 35-foot height, 3 stories. It's a building that was built approximately 1971. It's a rehabilitation nursing care. It's approximately 72 feet in height, 7 stories on 40,000 square feet, 326 units, which breaks down to a density of 1 unit for every 125 square feet of land area. The development just to the west, which is not in the pictures, there you go, is a recently constructed 7-story building in the J zone, J district, 661 West Broadway, 20 units on 10,000 square feet of land. It's approximately 85 feet in the center of the building in the J zone, which allows for 35 feet. And it breaks down to approximately 1 unit for every 500 square feet. So what you see in the immediate vicinity of the subject property, buildings that are 7 stories, 5 stories. In fact, if we go to the northeast corner of Washington Boulevard and West Broadway, used to be a former hotel. It's a 5-story building, 80, now it's a rental. It's 87 units, built 1967 in the J zone on 10,000 square feet. It breaks down to 1 unit for every 115 square feet. The building just to the east of that corner building is a condominium development known as Ocean Landing. 1982 construction. It's 475 West Broadway. It has approximately 16 units, 1 unit for every 625 square feet. So what I've described and what you're seeing before you, and you can see the high buildings, the limited visibility from Broadway to the ocean front, to the beach, whereas the applicant is providing for 1 unit for every 670 square feet. Side yards on the ends, on the westerly side, 45 feet, on the easterly side of approximately 25 feet. And in the middle, as you get above the 2nd story in the middle, it's all open between the 2 buildings. I continue to look at other developments in the city of Long Beach, and whether there'd be an impact on property values, character of the neighborhood. And on the north side of Broadway, West Broadway, between Riverside Boulevard and Edwards Boulevard on the west, you have numerous buildings that exceed the requirements of the code for the J zone. You have number 1 East Broadway at 68 feet plus feet in a J zone on approximately 20,000 square feet, 108 units. That breaks down to 1 unit for every 185 square feet. You have 35 East Broadway, a 10,000 square foot lot with 100 units, built 1972, 8 stories. And we can continue with other buildings in the J zone. I looked at the development of the 2 easterly K zones, and we don't have an exhibit for that at this moment, but there's the last 2 K zones would be on the easterly end of Long Beach, generally between Roosevelt Boulevard and Maple Avenue. There are developments in those 2 K zones that are generally 6 and 7 stories in height in the K zone. One of them would be 740 East Broadway, which is known as the Beach House. In the next block to the east, it's 848. I'm sorry, next to 848 would be 854 and 860, a 7-story, the Executive. In fact, Lido Shore Towers is a block front on the northerly side between Maple Boulevard and Cleveland Avenue to the west. It's Lido Shores, 855 East Broadway, 7 stories. As I mentioned, the subject property and its location is unique. Many of the parcels that I've just identified are on the north side of East Broadway, West Broadway, in the J zone. You have 6 and 7 stories where the code allows for 3 stories, 35 feet. Those parcels are typically 100 feet in depth, and they are adjacent to single, 1 and 2 family, attached and detached residences. Subject property is on the southerly side. It's between Washington Boulevard on the easterly side, and you have the 7-story 560 to the west. So generally, the higher buildings in the city of Long Beach is developed along the southerly Broadway, and as you go east of the RBA zone superblock, east of Long Beach Boulevard, the L zone are all on the beachfront with the highest and the greatest density, most luxurious, and the highest prices. The subject property itself right now has a lot coverage of in excess of 40%, provides no on-site parking. It's a dilapidated building. I looked at property values where you find these higher buildings, which I've identified, and many of that I haven't, and you continued to have construction in 1985, 1990s, where at that time, the construction type of developments were the townhouses, 3 and 4 stories. They're attached, providing for no open. They're typically the brick and frame, where the applicant is providing for a high-end quality development for the site, providing for openness between the buildings and on either side. And it's, again, important to note, you have Washington Boulevard to the east of the subject property at least 50+ feet, and you have what's between the 2 buildings, 560 and the subject property of at least 45 feet that'll provide almost a similar view that a street would. Based on my findings and the review on what's being proposed for the super block, I believe this is a development that's in keeping with the pattern of development. It's not going to depreciate property values. It's going to be a benefit both to the community, to the applicant, and to the neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Nelson, thank you for the presentation. Mr. Whittick, are you wanting now to present someone else? You know, I just want to make a little comment right now that, you know, you were doing a very detailed, you know, presentation for a meeting that really isn't the zoning format meeting. And I would say when we ultimately have the actual zoning meeting, you'll probably have to present or represent the same material that you're doing a very thorough job of describing the project. But again, because the scope of this meeting was really more of a discussion of the environmental impact statements and study that was done. It might be a good idea if you just want to backtrack at the end of it to at least cover what would be some of the issues that were mentioned in the impact study for the public and some concerns. For example, water usage, sanitation, traffic, those sort of things. Because I think you're doing a fine job of, showing us the project, presenting the project, the mitigated project. But these again, I don't want you to have to go through this completely twice again when we do the final hearing, because you're doing a good job of presenting everything now. But if maybe you could just touch on what the original, scope was, which were the, environmental concerns. That would be a good idea, I think. At this point, I'll give you a little extra time to do that, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And what I'll do is maybe ask John Ellsworth from VHB Engineering, who was the environmental consultant on this project, to do that and try to do it in a, concise form. Obviously, we don't, this is a voluminous
No, that's great, because
document we've
as
been
I
on
said,
for a long, long time.
I certainly was, very comfortable with what you guys were presenting tonight. But again, I felt that was more, for example, Mr. Nelson's detailed testimony. I thought would certainly be something that, would be well received during the zoning meeting. And I guess, for the purposes of the zoning meeting, he'll probably have to repeat it all again. But I think because tonight was the environmental impact, let's just spend a little time on that, because I think that's what people really want to hear tonight. All right?
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, whenever you're ready to go forward, if you have your engineer that would like to come up.
John? I think he has to be made a presenter or a panelist by David. There he is. Unmute, John. There you go. John, we can't hear you.
About that.
Now we can.
Okay. The first slide that was put up during the presentation goes through the topics.
An appearance.
Excuse me?
Their appearance.
John Ellsworth, VHB 100 Motor Parkway in Hauppauge.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And just quickly to go through the topics that were covered in the DEIS. Soils and topography, covered the on-site soils and the suitability for the construction. Topography is flat, so there wasn't really much discussed there. Water resources, including the proximity to the ocean, FEMA, water supply, sewage generation. Ecology was put into the scope. It is a fully developed site, so there wasn't much going on there. The key issue was zoning, land use, and community character. We did an extensive study of the development in the area of the proposed project in terms of the land use and community character, a lot of which was touched upon by Mr. Nelson. We went through the criteria for the granting of area variances, transportation and parking. We did a full traffic study with detailed counts at local intersections, noise and vibration, particularly during construction, air quality. Again, that was mainly focused on air quality during construction. Community facilities, to school, sewer, water supply. Just to note, we did get a correspondence from DeVerca and Bartolucci. They did a independent study of the sewer and water system and found that those two systems did have enough capacity to provide service to the proposed development. Socioeconomics, we had forward planning do a detailed analysis of the originally proposed action and the mitigated alternative. And that was their analysis was the basis of the economic information that was presented tonight. Visual and cultural resources, that was also a big topic in the DEIS. We did a shadow study in accordance with what was developed in the final scope for the DEIS. And we also did a photo simulation study, again, both for the original proposal and the mitigated alternative. Energy, growth inducement, and cumulative impacts are typical topics that are covered in a draft environmental impact statement. Also want to add that we did look at a series of alternatives that was included in the final scope. Included the no action alternative, which is required for a DEIS, the as of right alternative, the mitigated alternative, and another alternative that looked at development with reduced variances. And that basically is everything that was covered in the DEIS.
Okay. Mr. Ellsworth, do you want to continue on any of the individual items on the draft environmental impact statement, individually or specifically?
I don't think so at this point. I think the purpose of a DEIS hearing is to obtain input from the board and the public. The information is all in the document itself. We have a 3-month period for people to review the DEIS. So we look forward to receiving comments in writing so that we can address them in the FEIS.
Okay. So at this point, Mr. Woodick, would you like to present any more material?
No, Mr. Chairman, we're good right now.
Okay. All right. I think that for the purposes of tonight's meeting, I personally understood what was, being spoken about. I would like to ask any members of the board if there were any statements that they either didn't catch or didn't understand, or would like to ask of any of the presenters at this time. Anyone?
No.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all. At this time, I'm going to give this back to our counsel, Ms. Freeman. Owen, do you want to go further now at this point with comments? Because I know that there were other participants that might be involved at this time if we're going to hear from anyone else.
Not that I'm aware of. I think Carrie just had a little bit of a wrap up, but other than that, the comments are on the website, so we're not going to be reading the comments in.
Okay.
And like I said, I think Carrie was just going to throw the comments information back up on the screen and just reiterate that comments
Okay. That'd be great.
regarding the project can be sent to. I'll just wait for.
Would you want to come on right now, please, and present this? I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Hang on one second.
Yep, Carrie, I gave you back the presenters.
Okay, can you see that on the screen? So we just wanted to, again, remind everyone how they can submit comments on the document via email to Robin Lynch, the zoning board secretary, and or via regular mail to the address below. This information is posted on the city's website on the zoning board link that we went through earlier. And again, we have extended the comment period until October 2nd. That's all I have.
At this junction, if no other members of the board have any questions or comments, I believe at this point now we can end the meeting. And Mr. Woodick, to your original concern and question about when we would be having an open forum, I think it's just going to be a little question of time with the COVID situation that's going on, I'm sure that the city is closely monitoring the protocol that the governor has set, and certainly, the safety factors that since the state has opened up more and more in the last couple of weeks, and we're in phase 2 and working on phase 3. I have a funny feeling that Governor Cuomo has been very conservative and caring, and he's watching the numbers. And I think, maybe if the numbers stabilize during the month of June and July, who knows, they may end up allowing us to have a public forum sooner. So I think that it would be safe to say, in speaking for the council and the other members of the board, that as soon as we feel that we can safely have this meeting, we're certainly in no reason to want to delay this any longer. It's been going on for a long time. We would like to proceed as soon as we can safely do so. Are there any comments or questions from anybody else at this time? All right. That being said, I would like to thank everyone for being here, for the presenters to be here, for the members of for the public. The website was presented by Carrie, and you can decide to either review them yourselves. I see that it's back on to the page right now where you can view it. If anyone has any questions, they can access the website. If you don't have access to a computer, if you don't have the knowledge to be able to access it, please don't worry. You will be given an opportunity to go and examine by appointment the documents. We will be taking every step necessary to make sure that the public has understood this, is comfortable, will have their questions prepared for when the final zoning meeting is presented. I'm sure that everyone had a very ample opportunity this evening to see at least the mitigated plan, which I'm sure the applicants will present in even more detail at the time, perhaps the financial costs, the costs of the apartments, et cetera. These will questions that, may want to be addressed. And, I think that they will do a very thorough job based on what we saw this evening. So I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I want to thank you all for taking the time at home to watch this or to watch the, the YouTube. I wish everyone stays safe and healthy, and thank you very much for all of your time. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm sorry, if
Thank
I
you,
could
Mr.
just
Chairman.
if I could just say one thing, it's Robin Lynch. If you send a comment to the Zoning Board of Appeals to my address and you do not get an acknowledgement within 24 hours, if you could just please do a follow-up comment. I will be checking spam and my inbox daily, but if you do not get an acknowledgement from me, like I said, within 24 hours, please follow up with me and I'll look for it.
Okay. Also, I just wanted to make mention, Ms. Lynch, perhaps you want to touch on this. There was some concern about having the next meeting on this venue. Could we explain to the public? I believe the next meeting that was scheduled for the end of June. Can we discuss that, please? Because there might be some people that have interest in that meeting that normally we would schedule on the last Thursday of the month.
That's not related to this hearing tonight.
No. But I mean, if anyone is watching, has there been any change in the dates of the following meeting?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that this was a special session meeting. This does not represent the typical June meeting for the calendar year. And I just wanted everybody to know that there is another June meeting that at this time is scheduled. Okay? If there are no other comments or questions, I'd like to thank everyone again for attending. Hope that everyone stays safe. Thank you and good evening.